In search.feature, this search term is the name attribute of the search box. And search_submit is the ID of its submit button. Well, listen up, y'all. I'm about to tell you one of the most important things about working with Behat. Almost every built-in definition finds elements using the named selector, not CSS. For example, look at the definition for I fill in field with value. To use this, you should pass the label text to field, not the ID, name, attribute, CSS selector, or any other crazy thing you think of, the label. Clicking a link is the same. That's done with I follow link, where the link must be the text of the link. If you pass a CSS selector, it's not going to work. If I change search_submit to be a CSS selector, it'll fail. Believe me, I've tried it a lot of times. Got it? Okay. In reality, the name selector lets you cheat a little bit. In addition to the true text of a field, it also searches for the name attribute and the ID attribute. That's why our scenario is working. But please, please don't use the name or ID. In fact, the cardinal rule in Behat is that you should never use CSS selectors or other technical things in your scenario. Why? Because the person who is benefiting from the feature is a web user. And we're writing this from their point of view. A web user does not understand what search term or search_submit means. That makes your scenario less useful. It's technical jargon instead of behavior descriptions. So why did we cheat? Well, the search field doesn't have a label, and the button doesn't have any real text. So I can't use the named selector to find these, unless I cheat. Whenever you want to cheat or can only find something via CSS, there's a simple solution. Use new language and create a custom definition. Change the first line to, when I fill in the search box with term. If I can't target it with real text, I'll just use some natural language. PHP highlights this line because we don't have a definition function matching this text. For the second problem line, use, and I press the search button. You know the drill. It's time to run the scenario. It prints out the two functions we need to fill in. Filling these in shouldn't be hard. We're pretty good with mink. But how can we access the mink session? There's a couple of ways to get it, but the easiest is to make feature context extend raw mink context. This gives us access to a bunch of functions, the most important being getSession and another called visitPath that we'll use later. On the first method, change arg1 to term. Once you're inside of feature context, it's totally okay to use CSS selectors to get your work done. Back in the browser, inspect the search box element. It doesn't have an ID, but it does have a name attribute. Let's keep finding by that. Start with search box equals this arrow getSession getPage. Then to drill down via CSS, add find CSS left square bracket name equals search term right square bracket. I'm going to add an assert not null in case the search box isn't found for some reason. Fill that in with search box, comma, the search box was not found. Now that we have the individual element, we can take action on it with one of the cool functions that comes with being an individual element, like attach file, blur, check, click, double click, and a lot more. One of them is set value that works for a field. Set the value to term. This is a perfect step definition. Find an element and do something with it. To press the search button, we can do the exact same thing. Button equals this getSession getPage find CSS, comma, # search_submit. And assert not null button, comma, the search button could not be found. It's always a good idea to code defensively. This time, use the press method. Alright, we're ready to run the scenario again. And it passes. That was more work, but it's a better solution. With no CSS inside of our scenarios, they're less dependent on the markup on our site, and this is a heck of a lot easier to understand than before with the cryptic name and IDs. To save time in the future, create a private function getPage and return this arrow getSession arrow getPage. I'll put a little PHP doc above this method so that next month we'll remember what this is. Now we can shorten both definition functions a bit with this arrow getPage. Test the final scenarios out. Perfect. Now we have access to mink inside of feature context, and we know that including CSS inside of scenarios is not the best way to make friends.